So this is going to be a reasonably hard-hitting talk today. I mulled over what to call this, and I decided to call it Rethinking GIS Careers in the Age of Geospatial AI. I'm going to cover a lot of ground in this one. I've been in the industry for 25 years. I've been sort of at the forefront of the revolutions that have happened to GIS, from the web in the 90s to mobile in the 2000s to today. Things are dramatically changing. And today, more than any other time in the geospatial world, we are at a time of massive disruption driven by geospatial AI. So I'm going to talk specifically about GIS. Where are we today with GIS? We're really in a place where we've got large license enterprise platforms which are essentially locking folks in. They're vendor lock-in platforms, sort of closed ecosystems. The folks within GIS operate within complexity, and actually GIS presents itself, it's one of its features that it's complex. So we deal with complexity. A lot of times GIS is siloed. It means it's in a particular department, and the industry's marketed itself as 2D maps, and folks that are in GIS struggle to describe themselves beyond map makers, which essentially they are. GIS people are not in the decision group. They're generally in a department, so they deliver. They don't necessarily make big decisions. GIS is has a vertically integrated value chain. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So essentially GIS has built a moat around itself. It's essentially a kind of a walled garden. It's this area of specialty, and it's kind of protected itself, and specific companies have built these moats around themselves, and they're almost untouchable. And I think most importantly, the most successful GIS companies have built a very loyal community around them. Again, there's that network effect that I've spoken about before. But like I said, geospatial AI is a massive disruptor. And essentially what it's doing is it's unraveling the GIS value chain. It's breaking the pieces apart. So now a lot of things are being done outside of GIS, the geospatial. It's not just being done in those departments. We're moving from a complex world to a much more simplified world. So it's increasingly, as geospatial AI, and particularly generative AI and agentic AI, which I spoke to about in a previous talk, evolve, we're moving into a self-service world. We're moving into a world where we no longer need a GIS specialist. We may arguably not need a GIS department. Again, more on that in a minute. So we're in a period of change. The industry itself is now it's going through an interesting phase. I read a couple of this is what drove this talk actually today, a couple of really interesting articles today, one a newsletter, and essentially GIS, Esri are one company within GIS. They're really talking about this notion of a geospatial strategy. It's essentially, again, another one of my talks is a GIS strategy, talking about how they take GIS out of a department into the broader world. So to sell the value of GIS to the broader organization. That's got mixed results, but there is a very big push to do that and to build out these strategies and think this stuff through, particularly targeting GIS managers. The other piece of advice the industry is providing is to build moats around the data, to build moats around the capabilities of GIS. So, the industry itself is almost in sort of a self-protection mode at the moment. It's a self-protection mode to essentially protect itself, how it's operated historically. And I use this term cautiously, but to keep GIS folks almost slaves to the industry. I'm careful about using that particular word, but loyal to the industry, within that closed loop that is GIS. But it's kind of fighting old battles, I think, the industry. It's not really looking forward and seeing what is inevitably going to happen, because we're moving into a world which is an open world, a modular world. Interoperability is something, we hear a lot about. We're going to see a lot more agentic AI, which is where AI is doing all of the grunt work to go from an answer from a question to the right output in terms of an answer. So we're really moving away from what was the old world of GIS, the sort of platform first world, to really an AI first world. So we've got an industry that's kind of trying to protect itself. I think it's fearful of change. It's wants to continue to control the vernacular, the conversation, but realizing that over time, and none of us fully know what AI means, but it's in a place where it's going to be hugely disrupted. So I'll get to the actual title of my talk. You understand why I said I was unsure how to best to title this. Having worked in the industry for such a long time, and if I was in your shoes and you're working in the industry, what would I do if I were you today? I think you've really got two kind of choices. You can either stay within GIS and stay loyal to GIS, and I think GIS is certainly not going away, it remains relevant, but ultimately you're going to be part of a less in-demand industry, which is map making. I think where the demand is, the huge growing demand, is really AI first geospatial thinkers. I've often said I don't regard geospatial as about place on Earth, but geographers who make up the bulk of geospatial folks are dot connectors. We think broadly about things and we connect dots. We're experts at that. When we apply geography in a business scenario, we are the experts at dot connecting, and most businesses are fundamentally geospatial, people, places and things. So to apply that knowledge, the data, the technology, AI, to actually solve these problems is enormous, and there's a huge demand for it. And even though we have other folks coming into the field, data scientists, etc., they aren't trained like geographers. So I think the industry to survive has to change. It cannot use its old business models. It's got to become part of this interoperable modular world, more open, etc. But that's the industry's challenge. My focus is on you guys who are working within the industry. You've got to look more broadly. You've got to start reaching outside and thinking more deeply about your role and what you like to do. If you love the technology, Geospatial AI is taking off. Broaden your skill sets over there. If you love map making, cartography isn't going away. Again, it's going to be a smaller part of the bigger whole, but there is still a place for that. But I would say the bulk of people that are GIS or looking to work in the geospatial industry should be looking at the business value that you bring and how you can apply your knowledge to that. And it's not about selling GIS, it's about selling your own value in terms of what you bring to the table to help an organization be more successful. So I said to you it was a somewhat, I wouldn't say controversial, but I'm really mapping out the path, there's that word, mapping, for the future of not only GIS but the geospatial industry. It's an incredibly exciting future, but it's a future that is at the moment unsure, but without any doubt, what's unquestionable is it's an industry that has to change, and the people that are within it, your value is immeasurable. So don't be threatened by the challenges that you look ahead at where Geospatial AI might take your job. That might be a good thing. You then become a strategic business advisor within your organization. Huge amount of value. So that's my today's talk. I would love your feedback, any thoughts, you agree with me, you disagree with me. If you want to follow the stuff that I talk about, I've got a newsletter that you can sign up to that's above or below this video. And for today, thanks for watching.